I thought I was just fixing a light. I didn't know I was stepping into 7 years of silence. I used to think loneliness was just empty rooms and steel chairs. That was before I met Grandma Marlene. From the street, her house looked cheerful. Flowers in the garden, curtains half drawn. Inside, it felt paused in time. Floral curtains, dusty photos, a clock ticking too loud. The house wasn't empty, it was holding its breath. Grandma Marlene shuffled into the kitchen, fingertips grazing the table edge, careful not to disturb the shadows. She flipped the switch. Nothing. Again. Still nothing. "Oh, John," she whispered, brushing her hand across the counter. The words were for her late husband, though no one heard. A small laugh slipped out, almost embarrassed, dry and gentle, like someone trying to smile through a winter chill. She pressed the switch again. No spark, no flicker. Just a corner of the room swallowed by dim light. She wasn't afraid of the dark. She was afraid of visitors. She dug out a yellowed business card and dialed carefully. Her voice floated softly over the line. "Yes, someone this afternoon. Thank you." Even asking for help felt strange, as if the air itself might frown at her. Hours passed. Clouds rolled across the sun. The clock ticked sharper, impatient. She glanced at a framed photo, a man in uniform, smiling with tired eyes. She touched the corner, warmth blooming in her chest, a few tears almost slipping. She shook her head, chuckled softly. "Stop it, Marlene. You're making a fool of yourself," she whispered. But the warmth stayed, tucked quietly in her chest. Then came the knock. One polite tap. My heart jumped with hers. I held my breath with her, wondering if the silence would crack. She pressed her hand to her chest. She wasn't sure she could talk to anyone. Not yet. She opened the door just a crack. A young man stood there, toolbox in hand, eyes following the shadows, hesitant to step forward. "Ma'am, I'm here to help with your lights," he said. Calm, attentive. A tiny, nervous laugh escaped her. "Ah, yes, thank you." She stepped aside, a flutter of relief in her chest. I stepped inside and realized immediately silence could weigh heavier than furniture. Motes caught stubbornly in the sunlight, like old memories refusing to fade. She didn't know my name. She didn't know I was polite, quiet, carrying my own kind of silence. She didn't know that out of everything broken in the house, the light was the easiest thing to fix. And for a fleeting moment, she smiled, small, fragile, hopeful. As for me, back then, I was just the guy called in to fix a switch. But that switch would change everything. The door closed softly. The house sighed. Or maybe it was just me. Grandma Marlene led the way into the living room, moving slowly, each step measured, like she was afraid of waking the walls themselves. "Please, You can start with the light, she said, voice soft but steady. She tried to hide the flutter in her chest with a faint smile. I nodded, setting down my toolbox. My hands fiddled with a screwdriver, but my eyes wandered. Everything in the room seemed alive with memory. Every photo, every tiny knickknack held a story. Did you live here long? I asked. She chuckled softly. Long enough to forget what quiet feels like without company, though maybe some silences are better than others. I smiled. It was a quiet laugh, soft but genuine. She had humor she kept for herself, a tiny spark she rarely shared. As I knelt to unscrew the light fixture, she leaned on the chair, watching. Sometimes these bulbs are stubborn, but people can be too, she murmured, almost teasing. I laughed. Some people come in for a job and memories and everything. She glanced at me, caught my eye, and a flicker of connection passed between us. My hands worked slowly, but I kept stealing glances at her. She smiled slightly, teasing, shy, warm. Don't mind me, she said, brushing invisible dust from the armchair. I just like to see someone try. Her laugh was gentle, soft, filling the space like the room itself was breathing again. Then I noticed a photograph tucked behind the lamp, a younger version of her standing beside a man in uniform. I paused, unsure if I should ask. The room seemed to hold its breath with her. You keep him around? I asked quietly. She nodded, eyes misting slightly, lips pressed together to hold the smile. Always. Some people never really leave, even if they do. I felt a strange warmth, seeing her quiet pain and courage at the same time. We worked in silence for a few minutes, the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty anymore, but shared. Every gesture, every glance was a word we didn't speak. I glanced up, unsure what she meant, but smiled. Somehow, I had a feeling this visit was going to be much more than a light switch. I had no idea this house was keeping more stories than bulbs could ever hold. I focused on the light fixture, twisting wires and tightening screws, but something about the room kept pulling my attention away. There was a stillness, but it wasn't empty. It was waiting, watching. Grandma Marlene hummed quietly as she moved to the sofa, hands brushing over the cushions almost reverently. You know, she said softly, some things break easier than others. Some take years to notice. I paused, unsure what she meant, and she caught me staring. A tiny, wry smile tugged at her lips. Don't worry, you'll see soon enough. Curiosity prickled at me. I tried to keep my hand steady, but my eyes wandered around the room. That's when I noticed the drawer in the corner, slightly ajar, as if inviting me. I knelt, pulling it open gently. Inside were stacks of letters tied with faded ribbons. The smell hit me first. Old paper, memories preserved. I lifted one carefully, the handwriting delicate, almost trembling. Grandma Marlene shifted beside me, eyes glistening. Those, they're from him, she whispered. Every letter I could never send. I swallowed hard. The room felt heavier, warmer, full of voices that weren't speaking but echoing. I could hear her heartbeat in the quiet, and a small ache filled my chest. She smiled faintly, brushing a tear from her cheek. I never meant to keep them all, but I guess some things stay with us longer than we expect. I felt the weight of 7 years in that moment. 7 years of silence, of memories tucked carefully away. And yet, there was laughter hidden in there too. Tiny bursts of joy, even in sorrow. You don't have to read them, she said, a soft chuckle escaping. But sometimes it helps to have someone notice. I nodded, hands frozen over the letter. My mind raced, not with the light fixture or the job, but with the life inside this house, a life I hadn't expected to touch. The light flickered suddenly, startling me. Grandma Marlene laughed softly, almost mischievously. Even the bulbs have their own timing, she said. I smiled, feeling something shift, a connection forming, fragile but real. Something about her home, the letters, the laughter, and the tears, it all felt alive, like the house itself was breathing with her. I looked at her, and she looked back. And for the first time since I arrived, the house didn't feel frozen. It felt full. Full of stories, full of life, full of things I couldn't have anticipated from a simple light repair. And I realized the job wasn't just about fixing a bulb. It was about noticing, about listening, about stepping into a silence that had a heartbeat of its own. The letters lay in the drawer, but the room felt fuller than before, alive with words I couldn't hear but could almost feel. Grandma Marlene watched me, her eyes soft, carrying decades of quiet stories. You know, she said, voice low, I never imagined anyone would actually care to see these. She laughed softly, a gentle, wistful sound, like the echo of a memory that wasn't entirely sad. I glanced at her, unsure what to say. Words felt heavy here. I didn't expect, I faltered, then smiled. I didn't expect to feel this. She tilted her head, a small smirk forming. Most people don't. Most people just see the walls and the dust. Her eyes softened. But some things, they wait for someone to notice them. There was a pause, fragile but real. She shifted in her chair, brushing her hand over a cushion. 7 years, she murmured, almost to herself. 7 years of waiting, waiting for a voice or a visitor or maybe just a light to come on. I swallowed hard. I could feel her loneliness, her sorrow, but also something else, resilience. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just here to fix a bulb. I was here to witness. She chuckled, a quiet, soft sound that made my chest ache a little. You have a funny way of noticing things for someone just here to work. I laughed too, nervously at first, then with more ease. I've always noticed what people leave behind. Quiet corners, unsent letters. She nodded slowly, her smile faint but genuine. You remind me of him, she whispered. Her eyes glistened, a hint of tears threatening to escape. I didn't know what to say. The room held its breath with her. For a moment, I simply nodded, letting the silence speak. Then she laughed again, a tiny, shaky sound, almost breaking the weight of the moment. You know, she said, voice softer now. It's funny. You come in to fix a light, and suddenly someone notices your heart. I smile, feeling warmth bloom in my chest. That tiny, fragile smile of hers. It was like sunlight slipping into a room that had long been frozen. For the first time, I saw her not as a lonely old woman, but as someone who had lived, loved, lost, and carried it all quietly, patiently for years. And somehow, here I was, a quiet young man with a toolbox, becoming part of her story. The light flickered again, casting a small glow across the room. She looked at me, eyes sparkling with mischief and softness. You're not just here for the bulbs, are you? I shook my head, smiling. No, I think I've realized that already. I felt it too, the small living pulse of a house, a woman, and a story beginning to unfold. A story was beginning to unfold, and I had no idea how deep it would go. I stood up, toolbox in hand, trying to act casual, but the room felt different now. It wasn't just light I was fixing. It was something heavier, something that had been waiting for years. Grandma Marlene was in the corner, gently dusting a shelf. She paused, fingers lingering on a small wooden box. I almost forgot this, she said softly, a shadow crossing her face. Curiosity pricked me. What's in there? I asked. She hesitated, eyes tracing the edges of the box. Some things aren't for everyone, she murmured. Her voice wavered, soft and fragile, but there was a flicker of mischief too. I knelt beside her, careful not to rush, careful not to break the fragile moment. I won't touch it if you don't want me to, but I'd like to see, I said quietly. Her hand shook slightly as she opened the box. Inside were photographs, old, sepia-toned, faces smiling at a life that seemed so far away. There were letters, pressed flowers, tiny trinkets. Each one carried a story, a memory she had held on to for decades. A soft gasp escaped her. I I never showed anyone these, she whispered, not even my daughter. I looked at her, heart tightening. The room felt alive with memories, laughter, sorrow, love, and loss all entwined. I could see the weight she had carried alone for so long, and it made my chest ache. You kept all of this for him, I said gently, pointing to a photo of a young man in uniform, smiling warmly. She nodded, eyes glistening. Every little thing, every memory, every moment I didn't want to forget. I felt a lump in my throat. It's beautiful, I whispered, and it deserves to be remembered. Her lips trembled into a smile, fragile but real. I didn't know anyone would care. For a moment, we sat in silence, surrounded by shadows and sunlight, letters and photographs, and the quiet pulse of a life held carefully in time. Then she looked at me, eyes sharp but gentle. You came to fix a light, she said, almost teasing, and instead, you're helping me remember things I'd almost forgotten myself. I smiled softly, realizing this house, this woman, had more stories than bulbs, more memories than walls. And somehow, I was a part of it now. Not just a repairman, but a witness, a participant in something fragile, something alive. The light above flickered again, casting a warm glow over the photographs. She leaned back, a small laugh escaping her lips. You weren't expecting all this, were you? No, I admitted. Not at all. But I'm glad I came. Her eyes twinkled with something unspoken, and I knew this was only the beginning. The room felt heavier now, but in a good way, like it had been holding its breath, waiting for this moment. I set the toolbox down and took a careful step closer. Grandma Marlene was holding a photograph of the young man in uniform. Her fingers traced the edges, trembling slightly. He left me too soon, she whispered, voice catching. I never told anyone, not even my daughter. I felt a lump in my throat. I'm sorry, I murmured, unsure if words could even touch the weight of her memory. She smiled faintly, a fragile warmth. Don't be. Life isn't meant to be simple. A tear slipped down her cheek. She laughed softly, almost apologetically. I suppose I've been laughing at my own foolishness for years. I reached out, gently placing my hand near hers, careful not to intrude, just present. You've carried so much alone, I said quietly. It doesn't have to be that way anymore. Her eyes met mine, wide and glistening. I didn't know anyone would care, she whispered. Not really. Letters, photographs, quiet rooms, no longer just memories, but alive with her, with him, with everything she'd held in silence. And for a fleeting moment, I realized the house itself seemed to breathe with her. She chuckled softly, a tiny, hesitant sound that made my chest ache a little. I suppose sometimes strangers come in and notice more than family ever does, things even I hadn't seen before. I smiled, feeling warmth bloom inside me. Maybe they see what you don't even see yourself. Her gaze softened, and she laughed again, slightly louder this time, fragile, bright, like sunlight slipping through dusty curtains. You've made this day unusual, she said. For a light bulb repairman, you've done a lot more than expected. I shrugged, smiling sheepishly. I guess sometimes a small job brings bigger stories. The light flickered above us, finally steady, casting a warm glow across the photographs, the letters, the quiet life of a house waiting to be remembered. And somehow, I didn't want to leave, not knowing what else the house might reveal. I was finishing up the light fixture when a sudden clink made me jump. A teacup had slipped from the counter. Nothing broken, thankfully, but it made a soft rolling sound across the floor. Grandma Marlene's eyes widened, and then she laughed, a tiny, surprised giggle that I hadn't expected. I suppose even my tea wants attention today, she said, voice light, teasing. I couldn't help but laugh too, the tension of the room easing just a bit. I think it's jealous of the letters, I said softly. It wants to be noticed too. Her laugh grew slightly, warm and genuine, filling the corners of the quiet room. For a moment, it felt like sunlight spilling in, tiny and fragile, chasing away some of the shadows that had lingered for years. Then she paused, eyes twinkling. You know, you're not like anyone I've met before. I smiled, feeling a blush I didn't expect. I get that a lot, or at least I try. She shook her head softly, still smiling, but her eyes glistened with unspoken thoughts. I don't know why I feel like I can tell you things, she whispered, almost shyly. I looked at her, unsure what to say. But the room, the letters, the photographs, the small living pulse of it all seemed to urge me to simply listen. So I did. For the first time, I realized the house wasn't just full of memories. It was full of little surprises, little moments of joy, and laughter tucked carefully between years of silence. And as I straightened the light fixture, I noticed her humming softly, a tune so faint but so alive, it made my heart ache a little. I think even the bulbs are smiling now, I said. She laughed, a warm, small sound, shaking her head. You're impossible, she said. But her eyes sparkled, and for the first time since I arrived, the house felt completely alive. The laughter from the teacup moment still lingered softly in the room, but beneath it, a quiet shadow lingered. Grandma Marlene set the cup down and sank slowly into her chair, eyes distant. I suppose you've noticed, she murmured, voice low, almost breaking, that this house, it's been waiting. I tilted my head, sensing the weight in her words. Waiting for what? I asked gently. She sighed, eyes glistening. For someone to remember, for someone to see the pieces I couldn't put away, for someone to understand. My chest tightened. You don't have to carry it alone, I whispered. Not anymore. She gave a small, wry smile, brushing a tear from her cheek. "It's been 7 years," she murmured. 7 years since he left. 7 years of pretending the memories weren't breaking me in tiny pieces every day. I felt a pang, imagining the quiet ache of each day she had endured. Letters unopened, photographs tucked away, a house frozen in time. And yet here I was, just a young man with a toolbox, beginning to step into the gaps of her silence. She looked at me, eyes soft but filled with unspoken sorrow. "I never thought anyone would want to know these stories," she whispered. "Not really." I shook my head softly. "I do. I want to." A long pause settled between us, the house holding its breath. Shadows stretched across the walls, dust motes catching the warm light from the fixture I had just fixed. She leaned back, letting a soft chuckle escape, fragile but real. "You're brave, or foolish, or maybe just stubborn enough to notice what others ignore," she teased lightly, though her eyes glistened with tears. I smiled, a lump in my throat. "Maybe a little of all three." Her gaze softened, and for a moment she seemed to drift, lost in her own memories. I stayed quiet, letting her have that space, feeling the delicate pulse of the house around us, a pulse that had been waiting for someone to arrive. Then she sighed, a sound heavy with both sorrow and relief. "I don't know how much longer I can keep hiding everything, but maybe, just maybe, it's time." The light above us flickered once, steadying, casting a gentle glow across the letters, photographs, and the room that had held her memories for so long. And I realized this was no longer just about a light fixture. This was about uncovering stories, sharing them, and perhaps healing a heart that had waited far too long. She shifted in her chair, holding a folded letter close to her chest. Her fingers trembled slightly. "There's something I've never told anyone," she whispered. Her voice was small, fragile, almost like it could shatter in the room. I leaned closer, careful, silent. "You can tell me," I said gently. She took a deep breath, eyes glistening. He didn't come back from the war. I waited for letters, for calls, anything. And then one day, nothing, just silence. A quiet shiver ran through me. The weight of her 7 years of waiting pressed into the room, filling every shadow, every corner. I buried myself in memories, in letters I could never send, in photographs I couldn't part with, because letting go felt impossible, she continued. A soft sob escaped, barely audible, but it made my heart ache. I reached out, placing a steady hand near hers. "You didn't fail by holding on," I whispered. "You kept love alive, even when it hurt." She smiled faintly, a tear rolling down her cheek. "I always thought no one would understand, that I'd have to carry it all alone." The room seemed to pulse with her words, the small glow of the light above casting warmth across decades of memories. I felt the fragile threads of her sorrow and resilience intertwined, and I realized this was bigger than a light, bigger than letters. She glanced at me, a spark of humor breaking through the sadness. "You're still just a repairman," she said softly, "but somehow you've seen more than anyone else ever has." I laughed quietly, a lump in my throat. "Maybe that's the luck of the job," I said, though I knew it was more than luck. Her eyes softened, filled with a fragile trust. "It's strange. I thought I was alone forever, and now, somehow, I don't feel quite so alone anymore." For a long moment, we sat together in silence, letters between us, photographs glowing in the warm light, and a story that had been waiting decades to be noticed. And I realized the light I came to fix wasn't the only thing illuminating the room. Her heart, her memories, and the bond forming in that quiet house were shining far brighter than any bulb could. I took a step back, letting her words sink in. My chest felt tight, and I realized just how heavy 7 years of silence could be. Her eyes glistened with tears, but she laughed softly, a fragile, almost mischievous sound. "I suppose, after all these years, I didn't expect anyone to sit with me and just listen." I smiled gently. "Sometimes that's all it takes, to notice, to care." She nodded, brushing a tear from her cheek, and for the first time I saw her truly breathe, as if a weight had lifted slightly from her shoulders. "I kept all this waiting," she said, gesturing to the letters, photographs, and trinkets scattered around. "I thought I had to carry it alone, but maybe I don't." A small laugh escaped her, shaky but warm, and it made my chest ache in the best possible way. "You've made a difference today," she whispered. I felt a lump in my throat. "You've made a difference too," I said softly. "For me, for this house, for everything it's been holding." She looked around, eyes softening as if seeing the room anew. "It's strange," she murmured. "I came to fix a light, and instead I found a part of myself I thought I'd lost." Her smile widened, a fragile but real warmth. The light above flickered, steady now, casting a gentle glow across the room, across the memories, the sorrow, and the new connection forming between us. "You know," she said softly, almost shyly, "I feel less alone than I have in years." I nodded, feeling the same quiet pulse of hope, of life, of stories still waiting to be shared. "You're not alone," I said. "Not anymore." The room held its breath for a moment, then seemed to exhale softly, letting the sunlight spill across the floor, illuminating the letters, photographs, and the quiet heartbeat of a life finally being acknowledged. And in that glow, I realized the light I came to fix was never just about a bulb. It was about noticing, about sharing, about finding warmth in a house that had been waiting decades for someone to care. Grandma Marlene looked at me, eyes sparkling with a mix of mischief, warmth, and relief. I think this house has finally remembered how to smile, she said softly. I laughed quietly, a gentle, relieved sound. I think it has. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a stranger in this house. I felt like part of its story. The room was still again, but the atmosphere had shifted. It wasn't just light that filled the corners. It was warmth, memory, and a delicate sense of connection. Grandma Marlene sat in her chair, fingers tracing the edges of the photographs. I never imagined, she said quietly, that someone could care about the things I thought were long forgotten. I softly picking up a stray envelope from the floor. Sometimes the smallest gestures matter the most, I said. She nodded, a wistful smile forming. It's strange, she murmured, a light bulb repair, and yet here I am, feeling like my house, my memories, even my heart have finally been seen. I smiled, feeling the quiet pulse of life in the room, a heartbeat that had been frozen for years, now alive. It's amazing what noticing can do, I said softly. Then she a small, bright sound that bounced gently off the walls. You know, you're still impossible, she teased, eyes sparkling with warmth. But I think I like it. I too, feeling relief and joy I hadn't expected. I'll take that as a compliment, I said. She leaned back, letting out a soft, I think maybe this house has been waiting for more than just someone to fix a light. It's been waiting for someone to notice the heartbeat within it, the heartbeat within me. I nodded, quietly taking in the room, the letters, photographs, dust motes floating in the sunlight, and the gentle smile on her face. And it's beating again, I said softly. For a fleeting moment, the silence of the house was no longer heavy. It was gentle, alive, filled with memories, laughter, and unspoken understanding. Grandma Marlene looked at me, eyes glistening. I don't know how many more of these moments I'll have, she whispered. But today feels like the first time in a long while. I smiled, feeling the warmth of that fragile, living heartbeat. Then let's make it count, I said softly. And as the light above us glowed steady and warm, the house seemed to breathe along with her. A small, quiet rhythm of life, memory, and hope stretching far beyond the bulb I had come to fix. The room felt quiet, but not empty. It was alive with a gentle hum, the memories, laughter, and soft sighs of a life long held in silence. Grandma Marlene sat back, eyes half closed, a soft smile on her face. I never thought that someone could see all this and still stay, she whispered. I shifted slightly, watching her. Sometimes noticing is enough, I said softly. Sometimes it's the only thing that matters. She lightly, almost to herself, and it was a sound that carried both sorrow and relief. It's funny, I thought 7 years would make me forget, but I remembered everything. And now someone else remembers with me. I nodded, feeling the fragile pulse of the house, the letters, the photographs, the faint traces of a life that had waited decades for acknowledgement. You're not alone anymore, I said gently. She opened her eyes, looking at me with a warmth that made the room feel brighter than any light could. You came here for a bub, she said, her voice soft and teasing. And yet, you fixed so much more. I smiled quietly, a lump in my throat. Maybe that's what some jobs are really about, I said. For a moment, silence settled over the room, not heavy, but comforting, full of gentle exhalations and unspoken understanding. And in that calm, I realized the house itself seemed to breathe differently, lighter somehow, as if years of waiting were finally beginning to lift. She again, this time at herself. I never imagined a stranger would make me laugh and cry and feel seen all in one afternoon, she said. I couldn't help but smile. Life has a way of surprising us, I said quietly. Her gaze drifted to the photographs, lingering on a young couple smiling in the sunlight of decades ago. I don't know how many moments like this I'll have left, she whispered. But today felt like a gift. And in that gentle glow, I understood. The light I came to fix was only a beginning. The house, her memories, and her heart had been waiting for someone to notice. And now, someone had. Grandma Marlene picked up a small, worn journal from the shelf. I haven't written in this for years, she said softly, voice almost breaking. But maybe it's time someone knew everything. I leaned closer, careful not to interrupt. If you want to share it, I'll listen, I said quietly. Her hands trembled as she opened the journal, revealing neat, careful handwriting. These are the letters I never sent, the thoughts I couldn't say aloud, she whispered. I thought they'd disappear with me. I swallowed hard. They don't have to disappear. Not while you're here. Not while I'm here. Her lips curved into a faint smile, fragile but real. I never imagined a stranger would care this much, she murmured. You've seen more than anyone else ever has, more than my daughter even. I felt a warmth spreading in my chest. Sometimes noticing is more important than anything else, I said. Sometimes it's all someone needs. She chuckled softly, a small, almost shy laugh. You really are stubborn, she teased, but I think I like it. For a moment, silence fell over the room, not heavy, but full of understanding, memories, and the quiet heartbeat of someone finally feeling seen. Her gaze softened, lingering on the photographs and letters around her. I think today is the first day in years I feel like I can breathe again, she whispered. I smiled gently, feeling the same quiet pulse of hope. Then let's make it a day worth remembering, I said. The light above flickered softly, steadying again, casting a warm glow over the room, over her memories, her laughter, her tears, and over the fragile bond now forming between us. Grandma Marlene paused, her fingers hovering over an envelope tucked behind the journal. "There's one more thing," she whispered, a flicker of mischief in her eyes. I leaned forward, curious. "What is it?" She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "It's a letter I never sent. To him. I was too afraid he'd never read it, and, well, I guess I kept it for myself." My chest tightened. "You still have it?" I asked softly. She nodded, eyes glistening. "I did, until now." She handed it to me, trembling slightly. "I want someone to see it, to understand what I felt, what I hoped for." I took the envelope carefully, sensing the weight it carried. Years of hope, longing, love, and fear folded into a single piece of paper. Her gaze met mine, fragile and honest. "I never thought I'd share this with anyone," she murmured. "But somehow I feel safe now." A soft chuckle escaped her, almost shy. "You're not like anyone I've ever met. Stubborn, polite, kind. I think you've earned this secret." I smiled, feeling a lump in my throat. "I won't betray it," I said softly. "I promise." She leaned back, letting out a long, quiet sigh, a mix of relief, nostalgia, and gentle joy. "7 years," she whispered. 7 long years. And today, I finally feel like maybe some things can still come to light. The room seemed to shimmer in that moment. The photographs, letters, and even the light above felt warmer, alive with the weight of memories finally being seen and shared. Her lips curved into a small smile, teary but real. "You came to fix the losing," she said softly. "And instead, you helped you from you quiet worth today." "Sometimes the smallest jobs turn out to be the most important," I whispered. And at today's gentle glow, I realized the house wasn't just full of shadows anymore. It was full of heartbeats, memories, laughter, and the fragile, beautiful possibility of healing. I noticing a small box on the windowsill, dusty but carefully kept. "What's this?" I asked softly. Grandma Marlene's eyes lit up faintly. "It's my collection of tiny memories," she whispered. "Every little things I couldn't throw away. A token, a note, a memory who wanted to close." Crouchside, crouching to see inside, the lips of scraps of pieces of a life carefully preserved. She laughed softly, a small, almost shy sound. "I guess the memories like to be kept safe." I chuckled quietly. "They have good taste," I said, and she laughed feel laughter. Then those whirled a glint your eye. "Do you want to help me?" I blinked, surprised. "Help you?" She placed them in the sunlight for a moment. "Let them you're alive again." The sunlight poured through the curtains, casting golden highlights on letters, photographs, and stubborn flowers. She smiled softly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "It's silly with it like they're earlier the attention they deserve." I nodded quietly. "It's not silly at all. It's beautiful." For a moment, the room with sports, not heavy, but full of small heartbeats. The scraps flick of sunlight across old letters, the secret laugh escaping her lips, and the quiet feeling of connection growing stronger between us. She watching at me, eyes glistening with warmth. "You've made this day unforgettable," she said softly. "For a light bulb repairman, you've done home than I could have imagined." I smiled, feeling a lump in my throat. Sometimes a small job is all it takes to notice the things that matter most, I whispered. And as the sunlight glinted off the little box of memories, I realized the house wasn't just alive with the past, it was alive with the present, with laughter, hope, and fragile moments of joy finally allowed to shine. The room was quiet again, but the air felt lighter, filled with the warmth of sunlight and the fragile pulse of memories finally seen. Grandma Marlene took a deep breath, holding a photograph of the young man she had loved and lost. Her fingers shook slightly. "I've carried this for so long," she whispered, voice breaking softly. 7 years, pretending it didn't hurt, pretending I could be okay. I knelt beside her, careful and silent. "You've been brave," I said softly. "Holding on to love isn't weakness, it's strength." She laughed softly, a fragile sound, wiping tears from her cheeks. "Strength? Maybe stubbornness fits better," she whispered, a hint of humor breaking through. I smiled gently. "Call it what you like. The important part is you're not carrying it alone anymore." Her gaze lingered on me, eyes glistening. "I never thought a stranger could make a difference," she murmured, "but you have. You've helped me feel alive again." I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words. Sometimes noticing, listening, and being present, that's enough to help someone heal, I said quietly. She nodded, a small laugh escaping her lips. "I think I can start to let go now. Not forget, but breathe a little easier." We sat in silence for a moment, letting the sunlight fill the room, letting the letters, photographs, and small trinkets glow in the warmth. "Do you remember," she said softly, "how I told you the house was waiting?" I nodded. "Yes." She smiled faintly, tears still glistening. "It's still waiting, but now it feels like it's breathing with me. Not just memories, but hope, life, joy." Her soft laugh bubbled again, mixing with a quiet sigh of relief. And to think, all this began with a light bulb. I smiled, feeling the same warmth. Sometimes the smallest sparks lead to the brightest light. And in that gentle glow, I realized the house, Grandma Marlene, and even myself were part of something bigger now, a fragile, beautiful rhythm of life, memory, laughter, and healing finally allowed to shine. As Grandma Marlene carefully placed the little trinkets back in their box, A small paper airplane, one of the letters folded long ago, fluttered to the floor. She gasped softly, then laughed, a sweet, unexpected sound that filled the corners of the room. I forgot about this one, she said, picking it up. I suppose even my letters have a sense of humor. I chuckled, kneeling to help. Seems like they're trying to escape, I said, smiling. She shook her head, laughing through tears. I never imagined that after all these years, something so small could make me smile like this. I smiled softly. It's the little things that remind us life is still here, I said. She looked around the room, eyes soft but twinkling. Even the house seems lighter now. The shadows don't feel so heavy anymore, do they? I shook my head. No, it feels alive, warm, full of heartbeats. Her gaze softened, glistening with emotion. You know, I never thought I'd laugh, cry, and feel seen all in one afternoon. But here we are. I smiled gently, feeling my own chest tighten. Sometimes the smallest jobs lead to the biggest surprises, I whispered. She chuckled again, reaching for a photograph of herself and him. It's strange, she murmured. I thought these memories would hurt forever, but today they bring comfort, laughter, life. And for the first time in years, the house seemed to sigh, not in silence or sorrow, but in quiet relief, joy, and gentle warmth. Her eyes met mine, soft and trusting. I think maybe even a stranger can help a heart remember how to smile, she said softly. I nodded, smiling back. And sometimes hearts remind us how to see the light, even when the bulbs flicker. Grandma Marlene sat quietly, holding the little box of memories close to her chest. Her eyes glistened, a soft smile playing at her lips. I think I've been waiting for this for so long, she whispered. I knelt beside her, feeling the warmth of the sunlight and the faint heartbeat of the house. Waiting for what? I asked gently. For someone to care, to notice, to make me feel alive again, she murmured. Her voice cracked slightly, but there was laughter in her eyes too. I didn't think it was possible anymore. I smiled softly, feeling my own chest tighten. Sometimes life surprises us, I said quietly. Even the smallest gestures, a light fixed, a story listened to, can change everything. Her eyes met mine, tears spilling over, soft and warm. I never imagined I could feel hope again. But today I do, she whispered. I reached out, gently placing my hand near hers. You're not alone anymore, I said softly. not while the house, the memories, and even I are here. She, a delicate, fragile sound. It's strange. I thought 7 years would make me forget, make me numb. But instead, today I feel more alive than I have in years. I nodded quietly. It's the small sparks that ignite the brightest light, I whispered. Her smile widened, tears glistening. And to think, it all began with a light bulb, she said, and awe mingling in her voice. For a long moment, we sat together in the warm glow, letters and photographs reflecting golden light, the house breathing gently around us, full of life, love, and fragile, beautiful hope. I think maybe this house has finally remembered how to be alive, she said softly, almost to herself. I smiled, watching her eyes shine, and maybe it's teaching us both how to carry that light forward, I said gently. Grandma Marlene reached for a small, faded photograph of the young man she had loved. She held it close, then smiled softly at me. I never thought I'd show this to anyone, she whispered. I nodded gently. I feel honored, I said quietly. Thank you for trusting me. She, a fragile, heartwarming sound. I suppose, after 7 years of waiting, I needed someone to remind me it's okay to feel again. I smiled, feeling my chest tighten. It's more than okay. It's beautiful. Then she looked around the room, gesturing to the sunlight spilling across the letters, photographs, and little trinkets. I think the house, the memories, everything needed someone to notice. And you did, she said softly, eyes glistening. I felt a lump in my throat. Sometimes the smallest acts, a light fixed, a conversation shared, can mean more than anything else, I said gently. She, almost shyly, you're stubborn, you know that? I smiled. I'll take it as a compliment. She leaned back, letting out a soft, I feel lighter, she said, more like myself again, and maybe even ready to smile more often. I nodded, watching her face glow in the warm sunlight. You deserve that, I whispered. Her eyes met mine, filled with warmth, gratitude, and a touch of humor. I never thought a stranger could make me laugh, cry, and feel alive all in one afternoon, she said softly. I, a lump in my throat. Sometimes strangers become the most important people, I said. The room seemed to shimmer with that gentle pulse. Memories, laughter, tears, and fragile hope, all alive together. The light above glowed steady, but the real illumination was in her eyes, in the house, and in the tiny moments we had shared. She smiled again, soft and warm. I think maybe today my heart remembered how to shine, she whispered, and I realized I hadn't just come to fix a light. I had come into a life, into a story, into a fragile, beautiful world that had been waiting for someone to notice. The room was bathed in the soft golden glow of the repaired light. But it wasn't just the bulb illuminating the corners. It was the warmth, the laughter, and the gentle heartbeat of a life once frozen, now stirring with fragile hope. Grandma Marlene stood by the windowsill, gazing at the sunlight spilling over her letters and photographs. "It feels different," she whispered, voice quivering but soft. "Like the house, and maybe even me, can breathe again." I nodded, quietly observing her. "You've given this house and yourself back to life," I said gently. She, a delicate, heartwarming sound that made my chest ache in the best way. "I never thought I'd laugh like this again, or cry and feel seen," she said, eyes glistening. I smiled. "Sometimes it takes a stranger to notice the things that matter most," I said quietly. She turned to me, a faint sparkle in her eyes. "You came for a light bulb and ended up lighting more than just the room," she whispered. "You helped me remember hope, joy, and that life can still surprise you." I felt a lump in my throat. It's the smallest jobs and the smallest gestures that can matter the most, I said softly. She, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "I think today my heart remembered how to shine again," she whispered. For a long moment, we stood in silence, letting the warmth of sunlight, memories, and newfound connection fill the room. Letters glimmered in the glow, photographs smiled from their frames, and the faint heartbeat of a house and a woman intertwined, alive in the quiet. She reached out, gently touching my hand. "Thank you," she said simply, but the weight of it carried decades of unspoken words. I squeezed her hand softly. "No, thank you for letting me in, for letting me see," I whispered. Her eyes glistened once more, soft tears sliding down her cheeks, but her smile was radiant. "I suppose life has a way of showing you light when you least expect it," she said, voice trembling with warmth and awe. I nodded, feeling the room pulse with life and memory, with laughter, tears, and fragile hope. "Sometimes," I said quietly, "you find more than you came for." And as I stepped toward the door, Grandma Marlene called softly, a playful glint in her eyes. "Don't forget, the light isn't just in the bulb," she said. I smiled, knowing exactly what she meant. "I won't," I said, and with that, I left the room. But the warmth, the connection, and the gentle heartbeat of a life finally seen lingered long after the door closed. The house wasn't just illuminated anymore, it was alive.